I think we should get started. Okay, it's also going to be late. Okay, so Sujata, why don't you mute everyone except me, and then that's how we will do it right now. Okay. So good morning to the people in US and good night. I think we have some folks from India. My name is Aparajita Mishra, and I welcome everyone to the last seminar of this year of the OWE Forum, the OSA Women's Empowerment Forum. As most of you know, OWE was started in 2020 by our former President Kukudas with the help of some passionate Odia women. And the objectives were to create a platform for empowering, encouraging, and providing awareness and a safe space for women in an inclusive community, and to advocate for the rights and voices of women and families in Odia communities, both in Odisha and the diaspora. Our goal and vision is to identify the community's needs and leverage our skills and resources to help fulfill their mission. To that end, the OWE team has had several seminars over the last year in keeping with its mission and vision. The seminars cover a wide range of topics regarding women's empowerment. We have had speakers from Odisha and from North America. And now we have somebody from Australia now in this seminar. Well, the focus for Odisha has been helping rural communities in Odisha. The seminars in North America are focused on bullying and harassment, mental health, and women's health. The focus on Odisha has also had people from North America as speakers, and a lot of them are here. So today we present the much awaited seminar on domestic violence. What is domestic violence? What are some of the myths and misconceptions? Their far-reaching ramifications. Why should we, as an Indian or ODA community, care? So we have three excellent speakers today. I'm going to introduce them. We have our guest speaker, Dr. Prabhati Panigrai. She's a medical professional, a social justice advocate, and the founder of a public charity organization called Pink Umbrella International. This organization works for the immigrant communities for their physical and social health status and creates awareness of mental health and social health. Focuses on social or domestic injustice. In addition, Dr. Panigrai is a committee member and advocates for White Ribbon Australia. This is an organization that aims to eliminate gendered violence. She's also part of the domestic violence subcommittee of a reputed umbrella organization in Australia. She's an academic from the University of Sydney in the human rights and social justice sector. She works passionately for social justice topics, mainly for prevention of domestic abuse and mental health stigma. She's the multicultural ambassador for Mental Health Foundation Australia and sits as an international committee member for suicide prevention for United for Global Mental Health in UK. Dr. Panigrai is currently pursuing a postgraduate degree in domestic violence and advocate for these taboo topics through her radio. She hosts a radio show, GEM. She's the WIP award recipient of UNITAR, UN Institute of Training and Research, in 2019-20 year. An awardee of Emerging Women's Leadership Victoria 2017, and Special Award for Social Justice in 2020. Dr. Panigrai is very active in the Odia community in Australia, and she is the lead for social policy for domestic violence and wellness. Welcome. And now we have Tapasi Mishra. She is one of the founders of Awaz San Antonio, which is a 501c3 nonprofit which works with South Asian women, men, and children that are affected by family and intimate partner violence in San Antonio and South Texas. She currently serves as Awaz as a board member, director of outreach services, and client advocate. Tapasi has organized and presented at many women's conferences and seminars on several topics. The topics range from domestic violence, women's mental health, raising children in a multicultural world, and other related issues for Awaz, San Antonio Police Department, universities, sister agencies in San Antonio, and organizations in Odisha. She lives in San Antonio with her husband and Lala Tendu. On our personal experiences, whenever we have had any issues with domestic violence in the USA, there is one person we reach out to, and that is Tapasi Misra. She has always been there for countless cases. She always advises us on what to do and where to go to support these women. Thanks for that. And we have now Dr. Tapti Panda, MD, OBGYN, FSCOG. She's a physician specialist in OBGYN and minimal invasive surgery in New York, recognized as a top doctor for many years running in her county, a member of many respected associations, too countless, many to count, a member of American Association of Obstetrics and Gynecology, American Cancer Society, Alzheimer's Association. She is also a really, great with charity. She's a very, very generous person. Last year when COVID was raging in India, in 2020, she initiated the mobile COVID relief and screening units in Odisha. This year she launched during the second wave in India. She initiated the Breathe India project with her husband, who's a pulmonologist, Dr. Rajan Subaya, and distributed 138 US and China manufactured oxygen concentrators freely across 18 districts in Odisha. She supports, she also sent them many pulse oximeters. She supports Sambhav Foundation for the late Padma Shri Radha Mohan and Sabarmati to launch self-help women's program for empowerment. Dr. Panda is not only a great doctor, she's someone people can count on. She has been there to help anyone who has had a relative suffering COVID, spends a lot of time trying to address a problem, trying to get help. We're very lucky to have her. She genuinely tries to help everyone. Welcome to all the speakers. I'll go for talk for a minute about the logistics now. We have two videos for you today that tell the stories about the topic of domestic violence. The videos will provide context for the speeches of Dr. Panigrahi and Tapasi Misra. Their talks will be followed by Tapti, who will provide her perspective and experience on domestic violence as a doctor. That will be followed by Q&A that will be moderated by me. We will mute the audience through the talks. Please write your questions on the chat window. The questions can be answered by the speakers if they choose to. If any outstanding questions, I will read them during Q&A and the speakers will answer them. You can direct your questions to a specific speaker. If you wish to ask questions one-on-one on chat window and not generally, not to everyone, you can refer your questions to one speaker on the Zoom link and they can respond to you directly. At the end of Q&A, we'll let the audience ask questions directly. That time, maybe we can put the video on, request them to unmute and turn on the video at that time. After the Q&A, we will turn to Mrs. Anu Biswal for the vote of thanks. Another thing is that the topics will be chosen and the questions, because this is a very sensitive topic, The questions we ask will be at the discretion of the moderator. So now the floor is yours. Now, Dr. Panigrai, please take it away. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, first of all, Jitapa, uh, and the whole OSA team and the Women Forum team here. Thanks for inviting me because I know you all are quite passionate on this topic, and I'm privileged to be with so many passionate women in this group. Honestly, I believe in that. And my name is Prabhati. I'm a doctor, but as Jita already mentioned that what I do. But today my whole focus will be discussing on some cases that we do and how it is linked to the immigrant communities and particularly the cultural communities who are going to either USA, Australia, or any other countries, and how they struggle and how they link their journey and how they go through their different difficult times. And I will link those cases and the stories to domestic abuse and the red flags. So I request Sujata Appa to start the video. And once the video is finished, I'll come back and I'll discuss about different red flags there and I'll go through the discussion. Thank you.
What are their demands? Mosi asked. None whatsoever. They said Shubhat was livid when we asked him if he had any demands.
Meena remembers being awashed with waves of love and longing and respect for Subrat, her best friend indeed. They were married a few years later in a traditional ceremony. Both lived and worked in the IT industry in India for few years before moving to the US with good jobs. They were from the middle classes in India and had never been poor, but they never had so much money to spend. Now they had a car, bank account, vacation money, and dreams of a house and a very good life ahead.
How are you, my darling? We miss you so much. But it's wonderful to be able to talk to you so frequently. Your apartment looks so nice, like a little palace. And you have your own car.
Yes, Ma, it's like a piece of heaven here. We are both doing so well at work. American bosses are so impressed. We work a lot, but still have time to see friends and family over weekends. We do eat out a lot, as Subrat likes to try different foods. Yes, apartment is really nice, although it's a bit of a struggle keeping it clean. My hours have been crazy. I think I need to buy another car so I don't depend on him to drive me anywhere.
Wow, another car? You can afford it?
Of course, your daughter is an important person, Ma, with good income.
Thank you, Prabhu Jagannath.
Meena's ma was overwhelmed with a sense of pride in her daughter and gratitude for the joy in her voice. Thank you, Prabhu Jagannath.
I was hoping you could come for some time. Haven't seen you for so long. Your father is not keeping well.
I can't, Ma. We have to save money so we can buy a house. He wants to start a family soon.
What? You told me some time back that you wanted to wait 3 more years. That you needed to concentrate on your career, travel, get your master's degree, get your green card, and then think of starting a family. Even I finished my master's before having you. In those days, your father had not only agreed but championed my desire to study more.
I know, Ma. Not everyone is like Baba. Subrat seems very eager to hold a son in his arms. I think it's kind of cute.
Not at the expense of your career and your dreams.
We should have the same dreams. You always told me that, right, Mom?
Yes, but I hadn't expected. I mean, their family is so modern, educated. Shubhat was so forward thinking. I mean, you two seemed like such good soulmates. I mean,
We are, Ma.
wait, what if you have a daughter? How's the baby, my darling? How I wish I could have gone and stayed with you during those difficult months. I haven't seen my first grandchild. Your mother-in-law said they were suffering from depression. I don't understand. Aren't you happy about having a beautiful, healthy boy? Is Shubrat not happy?
We are both very proud of our little boy, Ma. Don't worry. It's just that it's a lot of work. You know, the baby, job, the housework. I'm always exhausted. I'm not depressed because of my marriage, Ma. It's called postpartum depression, and I'm getting over it. I'll ask my doctor about it tomorrow.
Notice the changes in the mood.
Yeah, but not just not the same as having.
Does Shubrat not help you?
He can't, Ma. He just got a promotion, which means he has more responsibility and hours at work.
Can't you leave the job? What does Shubrat think about that?
It's complicated. I think he would rather I stayed home, but I still earn well. So he lets me work. I really don't know what he wants. Anyway, I don't want to have a gap in my career, although I am so exhausted.
You don't get time for a baby?
I had some, but here in the US, most companies don't give much time off. Maybe I'll look for another job, but that'll take me some time too. I don't know. I'm just tired, but I'm happy. I should be happy. Don't worry about it, Mom.
Ma had been hearing the stress and anxiety in Meena's voice for some time now, even before Saroj was born. But today, crushing anxiety gripped her heart. Ma tossed and turned all night.
Yes, postpartum depression is real. You seem fine to me.
I know you have been having a hard time. Is Shubrat still losing his temper a lot?
Always. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. I left the job. He was in a good mood for a while, but then when the money did not come in, there was tension. Now I have to account for every penny I spend, even on food, for the baby, for the house.
I'll ask you something. Please don't be angry. Does he ever become physical? I mean, aggressive? Hello? Sorry, baby. Hello?
Please, Mom.
That night, Meena's mother cried herself to sleep. Is my daughter sleeping at all?
So sorry to hear all this, dear. I was wondering why you didn't call or respond to our invitations. Haven't seen the baby in a long time. Must be good looking like his parents. I am glad you called. Cry to your heart's content, dear. You can completely be free with us. I'll ask my husband to contact Subrat and invite you all over again.
You have been in the city for very long. Have you heard of any Indian organization that works with women like me? Like a support system, has any resources?
Oh no, Meena, stay away from those people. They're activists, homebreakers, a bunch of frustrated women. Maybe all drove their poor hubbies out. They call themselves Indians. They spread rumors about us and shame our country here.
So please tell me, is there anyone that can help me help us? Perhaps talk to him?
We cannot interfere in your personal
Helpless here. Just looking for help.
That night, Meena called her sister-in-law and confided in her.
He has always had a nasty temper and would fly off the handle at the slightest provocation. You just have to be very careful at not provoking.
I'm treading on eggshells, but he gets so livid over everything. I never know anymore where the anger or the slaps are coming from.
So sorry, Bobby.
Confused.
I don't think he'll be physically violent with you.
Sure.
Please, Bobby, don't cry so much. I mean, we all know how much he loves you.
She was advised that her husband can be everything but abusive.
That could be a barrier.
His mental state and physical bruises were not hidden from her friends either. Upon being asked, she cornered herself away from the world that surrounded her.
Isolated now.
But I've seen you go places. Just call the police.
Why don't you just leave? I can't. It's not easy. Besides, I have my son to consider. Somewhere in there is the man that I loved years ago. I have to find that man, and I'll never call the police on him. I can never say something like you.
Sorry to say this. You make other Indian women some week.
Finally, Meena decided to consult a therapist. Sarita was a cousin living in New York and a practicing therapist.
I have been listening to you for hours now over so many days. It's not your fault, and you don't have to live like this.
There are options, but the initiative and steps, they do have to come from you. I can support and connect you to the right people in the city.
Steps? You don't mean divorce. I don't want that.
Not talking about that. And you are nowhere near that step, but you do need to talk to people who will actually listen to you and give you support without judging you. Who will maybe after some time reasonable, viable alternative options.
Alternative options to
Living like this, you deserve to feel and be safe, living normally and breathing freely, and you definitely do not deserve to be abused.
abused. You think I'm being abused?
Think about it.
Accept it.
There are other options, and there is help out there. Take your time.
Sarita heard her over many days and concluded that it's not her fault and that she did not deserve to live like this. She requested that Meena considers her other alternative options to gain back her mental sanctity, self-respect, and peace. She also suggested that Meena was being abused. What happened to this beautiful bride couple who had been so much in love and had the world at their feet once? What were the red flags? People's advice. What was wrong or right with them? What would you have given her? What do you think Meena did right or wrong? What do you think happened to Meena's story?
Thank you so much, first of all, to listening to this with patience. And if you can link that, that's a very real story. And thank you, Tapasi, for scripting that and connecting that to some of the fictional stories, but with some real life experiences. What I would like to ask you, what at the end you can see, I'll just trying to focus your attention to those comments and conversation. So what has happened? They're so beautiful. They're in love, and that was an arranged marriage. They were earning money, and what happened? How slowly the transition happened, and at some stage she was physically abused. But what happened before that? There's a huge gray area that we don't see, that remains invisible. We only see when there is a bruise, or it is hidden, but we sometimes ignore it, or the herself, Meena herself, is not in. This is completely in denial when the therapy says it is a abuse, and she's also completely denial when the friend asks her, "Okay, why not leaving her?" Because honestly, it is a very complicated situation. It is not easy, particularly when there is a child linked to that girl. What's happening? What is that inequality has started happening in the slow process, that there is an abusive situation started? What is there? You can just link that, the questions there, that when she's confiding to the sister-in-law, she's telling she's he's so much in love. So she's literally denying that there is an abuse, but she's also telling that there is some tantrum history. So there is some connection to the previous history, and those are the key things we must focus on. When she's going to, like she also mentioned that I have to depend on him for the car. There is some kind of dependency for her own lifestyle and moving or around. And then when she stopped the job, There is economic abuse, and economic abuse can be of any form. The controls, the manipulation, the calculation, and the emotional abuse. That's a pattern of coercive control. At the end, when she is in with the therapist, because she doesn't, I couldn't show that in the video because it was long. When she was telling her mom that I have to contact the therapist, the mom is also saying, oh, just don't tell everything because it is a family same as well. So our society, our family same, our lack of knowledge, ignorance, and the peer groups, everything makes it so hard for someone who is trying to go and settle in a new country, new place, and she doesn't have anyone and she's isolated, because in between the husband is saying, I'm not focusing on a husband or wife, it could happen to anybody, but it mostly happens to women. So we have to refer that in real life that it is happening to women, and our story and our focus is on women in this story. So she is, like you can see, there is a tiny, tiny thing, and it is so subtle and so tiny that the girl herself is confused. When the husband says, "Oh, your friend is not good," or "You don't contact with your friends," she starts questioning, "Is it really my friends are not good?" And she gradually she isolates herself. She left the job and she's busy with the child, and she doesn't have much money, so she isolates further and further. So it always reminds me of a story that says that, okay, I'll tell a story which is very much connected to this, that there was a frog and somebody put that frog on a bowl of cold water. It was very cold outside and the frog is thinking, oh, it's so cold, why is putting me in that cold water? And then the person just put the light on and the gas on, and it started becoming warm. And he was very happy. Oh my God, he's taking care so much. Like, so I'm so happy with this warm water. And then slowly the temperature increases, and the frog starts getting used to that. Okay, that's fine. I'll adjust. Okay, that's fine. It goes from 30 to 40 degree and 40 to 50 degree. And then she says, okay, I'll manage it. It's fine. At some stage, it starts boiling. And that stage, he doesn't, he already lost all power. So he's confused what to do. And the frog dies. And this is not very different than what this kind of transition, the kind of coercive manipulations, that's not very different than that, because we start with our mental condition or our peer group or our cultural background. We start normalizing that, okay, maybe he'll be all right, maybe it is okay, maybe the abuse is okay, maybe he slapped me once, that's fine, he won't slap me again. Maybe the finance, he is very stressed in the job and that's why he did it. So all these are red flags. And also the peer groups, and they say, okay, he is so nice, so charming, so good. And it is not uncommon for people who does the coercive abuse or of a narcissistic uh, kind of personality, or there is a trait with them that they're always over project outside and they're always very charming, very good, and they help the whole world. But we don't know what's happening behind that door. So with that, I'll start my slides here. Sorry. Um, yeah. Can you see it? All good?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So I just this topic is so
No,
very
no.
close.
We can you see the slides, guys? I cannot see them.
All right. Oh, sorry.
You have to share screen.
Yeah. Can you now?
Yeah, it's yeah, started.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you. So when the topic they chose, like all of us, they decided behind closed door. I think this title itself is so very close to me, because each time I think I would also add one word there, behind the glass door. I always say it is behind the glass door, because in a glass, through the glass door we do see everything, but we don't identify, we don't recognize what's happening there. So behind that door, what's happening and why we are talking so much about domestic abuse or the intimate partner abuse? I will link everything as I mentioned about the immigrant and the culturally diverse community, how it is different and how we all face that, and how our life is different than if we live in India. So is it very different if I was far away from my family, but I have a good job or a good house? So how it is different. Before that, it is very important for us to know that what it is: domestic violence, domestic abuse, intimate partner violence. Intimate partner, because we most of the time we go with the spouse, with the spouse visa, with the dependent visa, either it is US or it is Australia, and there is lots of process that involves in that visa, and there are lots of conditions involved in that. So let me talk about intimate partner violence here. So how we define the domestic violence? It is practically, is it just the physical abuse that we know, we see picture and we link that to abuse? I think there are a lot of things we need to identify and understand if we really want to change. First, we need to understand, we need to educate ourselves before doing anything. So this is a kind of control. This is a kind of pattern of power and control, where there is a regular use of intimidation or control your closed partner, because we can do that with the partner. It's easy. Nobody will question us. Nobody will identify us, and that's the best way to exert our power. So this abuse can be of very different, like could be physical, could be emotional, psychological, spiritual, sexual, or digital. But the most key factor there is something that we never identify, we never see it. It remains invisible all the time. So before going to more details, I thought I'll show this picture. I didn't want to put any real statistics that WHO gives or any UN Women gives or real research gives. I thought I'll show this picture. This picture was taken by one of the journalists in Sydney, in Australia, who does this research and really sees a very good advocate for domestic abuse, because she started the journey with some incidents of homicide, and then she was really like, when she went to the people and knew about the stories, she was overwhelmed. She said, "Oh, I will dedicate all my life for this woman." And this one last year she did in the town hall in the central Sydney. She put she counted how many people died, how many mothers died, and it was something around 63 or 64 in 1 year, in 8 months. So on an average, we do see lethality in two in a week, or like average. So these all shows, the pair of shows represent, these are the missing women and the missing from their family, from their life, from their child's life. I just it was very heart touching, and that day I was there. It was really heart touching. But before that homicide, before that lethal top, that's the top of the pyramid. What are the other things that brings, like, that accumulates, that added to the factor, to the abusive situation, that ultimately we have to reach to this stage where we will sow this pair of souls. We all know that nowadays WHO has already declared this as a global public health issue. So it is considered as a public health issue, and it is quite endemic everywhere. The pattern is quite similar everywhere, because we have a brain and we have certain kind of psychology involved in this kind of pattern and the control. So what are these abuse? Even a few years back, around 7, 8, 10 years back, I also thought that it happens to low socioeconomic status, like our domestic helper. Like she comes and complains that this is what happened. Even I was thinking that this does happen to them only, but I was surprised and amazed when I heard stories about doctors, engineers, and all highly qualified women whose partner has equally qualified, and they're very highly reputable socials. They have a very good status. And also the another thing that unfolded, that it is not only physical abuse, there are a lot of things we need to know about the kind of abuse that happens, particularly for a domestic abuse situations. I chose this picture. This is a Chinese journalist, and see how we are biased by this beautiful social media picture. We always think that it's all good behind. It's not that they are not good, but some of the cases we should not get biased or confused or start comparing that, oh, it's all good. But just see, after a few days of this posting, she posted this when she didn't have any other choice. She was helpless, desperate, and she posted this in the social media. So it is very difficult, but here at least we can see the pros, but there are some of the situation we can't. So we all focus, we all know about physical abuse. It is hitting, not only, not necessarily the perpetrator has to hit directly. Sometimes if the perpetrator also slams the door, shows a knife, that's also is part of physical abuse, because that creates the equal amount of fear and the tension, and it is, they are at a high risk. It does happen that they will just show that knife and will say that, okay, I can't do anything. So that's also part of physical abuse. But what I want to focus today is something different, that is invisible. Do you really understand what is that invisible situation and how it leads to the physical abuse and at the end lethal situation, the lethality or homicide? I don't want to focus this much because it is really for the crisis situation. But what is a bystander or community advocate or all of you we can do is just, if you understand this pyramid, we cannot reach here if you don't address this, or any of those. This all 90% of the cases are actually emotional abuse, that coercive abuse, or the verbal abuse. Altogether, it comes 90 to 95%. And in all physical abuse, this is a constant factor. Without this, we cannot reach to the physical abuse. That trait is there, that kind of personality or some like the manipulation is there, and that's why this is the technique used initially, at the beginning of the cycle or beginning of the abusive situation, beginning of the inequality. So we have already inbuilt attitude. Not everybody, let me repeat it, not everybody, but most of us, we have a gender inequality attitude. We have learned from our society how to how to be privileged as a man or as a boy, and how to underestimate or undermine a girl, saying that even the verbally, if you say, oh, you cannot do it, and constantly the girl starts listening to that, they believe that yes, they cannot handle it, and it is not uncommon in our society. That's a very important factor that causes all this. Even when they go from India to Australia or US, these are all developed countries, but still we cannot leave our attitude or belief or the cultural stereotypes. It's so hard because it is sitting subconsciously inside our mind. I thought I would put this wheel, but I couldn't miss this because it's such an important wheel. This image is one of the key things we need to understand, that how it happens. All this, what we see here, the attitude, it all comes with the emotional control. We know that we can do that because our society allows us to do that, and we know that we can escape from that because our peer community members can support us. And we also know that that girl, if you assume that girl or the victim, she will be isolated, she will be ashamed, and then we will project ourselves outside as something very charming, a very sociable person, but we'll just use the technique so that she will gradually become smaller, smaller, and smaller. At one stage, she will start doubting herself, and then the gaslight, what is called the gaslight, means she will start blaming herself for all this assault that she is receiving. Like, I hit you because you didn't cook properly, or you didn't take care of me, or something, and you don't have to. it not necessarily it has to be a huge thing. It can be for a glass of water. It can be for any tiny thing, because at the end, my whole aim is to exert my power over her, because I know I have succeeded in that technique and I use that repeatedly. So coming to this cycle, this wheel, I'd say how we do that power and control, how they start it. Of course, they have a belief, and of course they have a trait. Many of them have some trait already. So the narcissistic personality trait means they're very much self-focused, and they sometimes are very insecure because of their previous history. They might have a traumatic history. uh, Research has actually said that most of the cases, particularly this kind of intense abuse, they will have some kind of traumatic history, and they want to overcome that by projecting being too good. So in this, so this is the intimidation means they will tell that, okay, this is they will talk about some examples, like I'll give some examples how they do it. Like they will say that this is real because this is a psychologist who was training us. She mentioned that. So how they, when they got married, it's very nice, and then the partner started telling, oh, you are not beautiful, you're ugly. And each time they're going to some friend's place, he started comparing, and at some stage, see, that smart girl become started outing that I'm not beautiful, that's why this he doesn't like me. So that's a technique to demoralize you and just detach you from your loved one and make you isolated, and that is how they succeed in there. That's where the isolation. So intimidation, the emotional abuse can be of any forms. It could be through the economic, the finance. The girl who is migrated to a new country, she might have left the job, or she might be devoting her time for the family. It means she's devoting her time in terms of money, but nobody understands that. And that then the monetary control, every calculations, every expense, when they he ask, or the partner asks, it's a huge humiliation for the educated girl, for anyone who is staying separate, away from their own family. And then minimizing, I already told about isolation. That is a huge thing, the isolation, because the perpetrator doesn't have to do this. He already used the technique, but the girl herself started doubting and feels so ashamed that she's not working, or she doesn't have the money. She was so good. She tried to keep herself isolated from her own friend group, and that is a triggering factor cause towards the other form of abuse. The minimizing, denying, and blaming, like if I'm abusing you, it is because you have provoked me. I think that's a very common thing that happens, because they don't want to admit that they did something wrong, because that empowers them when they say that I'm right, you are wrong. And that's where they use that emotional tactics. What else they do that? Oh, I talked about economic abuse. That's a huge factor for immigrants, particularly economic abuse. Now they are doing, in Australia, they are exclusively doing the economic abuse related law. I'm glad they're thinking about that. And using children, that's a very good coercive method, particularly when children are involved, because they know when they control the child or child's presence, then the mother is going to be controlled. And often the immigrant women who are on spouse visa or dependent visa, they think they will be deported, because that's what they threaten them, that we will deport you, or if you do that, you are independent, I'll withdraw your like the visa status, because I don't want you anymore. And that fear is always with the mother, that I'll be separated with from my child, or he'll deport me, or my visa will be in danger. So what will I do now? I'm confused. I cannot leave. I cannot go home. It's a huge fear and factor, the coercive manipulations. Privilege, I already told, they might have a job, they might have a friends who also believe in the similar thing, and also they might have a very good reputation outside. That itself is a privilege, and being a man itself is a privilege in our society, because It's less in developed countries, but definitely it is still there a lot. So all this combined, actually they use the coercive method, which is otherwise called also passive aggressive method, means they don't tell you directly that you are bad, but they'll arrange everything so that you start thinking that you're bad. Most of the coercive manipulation is beautiful and charming because outside, the person perpetrator normally is very smart because he knows he is doing something wrong. So to overcome that, he will be absolutely fantastic outside most of the time. And then sometimes they are even they trick the psychologist if they're not well trained, or the counselor if they're not well trained in domestic violence. I always say that mental health and domestic violence they live together many times, but domestic violence is so complex and so complicated because in mental health we are dealing with one person, but in this domestic abuse we are dealing with two-person where one person is completely try to control the other person. So it's very complicated because he or she normally tries to keep his image intact, beautiful, and so he cannot tolerate if a power been taken from him or or the perpetrator. So he can go extremely violent if the person he suddenly lose that power. It means if the lady, the girl, the victim is going somewhere, means he cannot exert the power. So he will try every form, every manipulation, physical, mental, economics, every form of manipulation to keep that power intact. And that's why he normally they won't like if they leave the family. That situation is extremely dangerous time as well. So this is how they will humiliate you, they minimize you, they constant criticism you that you are not doing any job. They know why she's not doing, but then still you're not doing any job. Your friends are doing. So the internalization of your own humiliation creates lots of problems. They can go to depression. They can go to other form of anxious situation, and they always walk in on excel. What does that means? It means at every moment they are worried that if I do something, he will burst open and he can do anything like out of control. So with the previous experience, I have certain kind of fear, and then I'm worried that again it might trigger him. So I will change my decision. I will listen to him. I'll try everything to create that peace. It is a really complex situation because many parameters there in this domestic abuse. I might add, like it is lots economic abuse again is linked to emotional abuse. So and the most currently the technology, the digital abuse means they can stalk you, they can locate you, they can know what you're doing, they will contact your friends, and also social media is sometimes quite dangerous for them. I already most of this I covered because I know how complicated it is, and also it is very important, particularly culturally diverse community, those victims, that they find it very isolated because they cannot communicate to the justice system, to the police, to the social worker, because unless it is we are looking through the cultural lens, we won't understand the relationship. It is very different for us as an Indian. Besides that, another new thing that comes is we have a very classic economic abuse that is very unique to few of these countries, and India is one of that, and that is the dowry abuse. With that dowry abuse, with that dowry manipulations, most of these girls are manipulated by a distant relative who lives in India or in another country but controlled there. So that thing the Australian or the US people, the Western people, they want to understand what's happening. So that's why we need a cultural lens. We need Indian or the cultural specific social worker. We need to train the police, train the social worker, teacher, everybody, and it's so very important for us to do that. This is a picture that literally points out everything that a girl with or a victim is thinking and is scared. And here is the controller who is not, it doesn't not visible at all, but still controlling here.
Hey, Prabhati,
Yeah.
I'm really, really sorry. This is a wonderful talk. We have two more speakers, so I was just wondering whether
Okay. Yeah.
you
I'll
have.
be quick.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay. Just quickly, just to know that if you're thinking that children are not affected, actually they are affected equal to a very serious form. It just, I can share this slide later on. So they go through PTSD and other kind of trauma. And as I said, why they do some, they live there because they are very attached with the cultural belief, and also many times they're confused that it is not abuse, so they live in denial and ignorance. Separation is a very high risk time. And in my final slide, I would say that it is very important that we understand this and educate, understand, accept it, and then act. We can't act if you don't understand it. And so let us be a good listener without judging them, and let us help in whatever way we can, and let us direct them to the right services, and let us encourage them to speak up to the right services. Thank you. Thank you so much.
A great speech. Please write down your questions. I do see a couple of questions. Please keep writing. We'll go through them now or later. I mean, they can respond through chat or later. But now we can maybe go to the video, right, Sujata?
Tapasini is going to speak first.
Yeah, hi. Namaskar, my name is Tapasi Mishra, and I live in San Antonio, Texas, and I work with AWA San Antonio, which is a nonprofit working with people affected by men, women, and children affected by domestic violence, intimate partner violence, and family violence in San Antonio, in the South Asian communities of San Antonio and South Texas. Whatever I will say today will solely come from my experience and my experience only with clients, not from my research, not from statistics, not from my training. Thank you, Prabhati. That was an amazing, comprehensive analysis of domestic violence, different aspects of domestic violence, focusing on the invisible bruises, the emotional bruises, and that's what we deal with most with cases in Indian homes, South Asian homes. It starts like that, stealthily, slowly, and more often than not, and more often than not, it also escalates, unfortunately, into physical violence. We saw a very textbook story of Meena story. Next, we have another story for you. We go a little bit more into the physical, from the more into the visible bruises. And Sujata, if you would kindly play the video. It's a Ranu story.
Yes.
And Ranu graduated with a degree in.
Sorry about that.
waste of money. Spending so much on her education. We should save it for her marriage.
I cannot give her a lavish marriage and a big dowry, but I can give her a solid high school education. And sending her to a best college is very important.
Despite grandparents' demands to get Ranu married after high school, father insisted that Ranu attend college, and Ranu graduated with a degree in English and philosophy. Ranu had wanted to go for her master's before marriage, but the proposals were too good, and Ranu settled on marrying Rajkishore, a doctor who was heading to the west. Life in the small New York apartment was drab, especially with Raj gone to work all hours of day and night. She had no friends or family in New York, and Ranu had difficulty in communicating with her new friends, who were other Indian doctors' wives. None of them shared her interest in reading or talking about having careers. Ranu felt alien in that group. Ambitious Ranu soon started to walk to the neighborhood library and ended up spending most of her time there.
Hi. Where have you been? Why do you spend so much time away from the house? You don't like it here? This apartment too small compared to your lavish family home back in India?
My parents' home in India is an old, comfortable house, but not lavish by any stretch of the imagination. Cannot imagine this highly educated, seemingly cultured young fellow to snap at me this way. For what? Wanting to read more, explore the country, he brought her to.
I just go to the library to read and meet people. Americans are so fascinating. That's not why we came here. Not to learn more about the USA. We came here to earn more. I am working so much for it, and you need to do your little bit. Of course I want to work. I'm thinking of my studying and having a good career myself. I can contribute. You don't have to shoulder the full burden. No need. I will earn enough for both of us. You need to learn how to run this household. And don't go to that library anymore. It's filled with poor, unemployed Americans. This is a shelter for the homeless. That place stinks. But I thought they are wonderful. Opening my eyes to the world. Don't think.
That was the end of Ranu's college and career search, learning about her new country and meeting interesting people. Soon, Raj got a good job and soon they moved to Texas. In Texas, they lived in an affluent neighborhood. Their house was dubbed as the Italian villa in the Indian community in San Antonio. And Raj and Ranu quickly became popular. Raj had always been a darling amongst Indians in the US, always ready to help and such a gentleman. Ranu was known to be quiet, cultured, soft-spoken, the perfect trophy wife for a doctor.
You always look so gloomy. Doesn't anything make you happy?
No, I'm happy.
Any of men would kill to have what you have.
It's just the public transport here. It's not like in New York. I cannot move around much.
No taking a bus here. Take a cab.
Maybe I could drive on highway.
Have you seen yourself drive? Absolutely not.
Maybe I could keep more gas at home.
I have given you enough. Besides, money doesn't grow on trees. Enjoy what you have. You need to be inviting more people to our house often. You need to take some cooking classes. I'll drop you up there.
Ranu did for some months and became an expert cook and hostess. Grocery shopping every Thursday night,
marathon cooking on Fridays and Saturdays, and entertaining other affluent Indians, Raj's colleagues, and affluent neighbors became her routine. She enjoyed meeting so many people all at once and decided to use this opportunity to learn and to grow. Soon she had her own set of like-minded friends. She got offers for rides to bookstores, libraries, movies, restaurants, career fairs, and university counselors.
Oh, Ranu, you are too bright to be sitting home. Cooking and entertaining like there is no tomorrow. I am blown away by your ideas and thoughts. Society needs you and you need to start living.
Oh my God, Sobha. I'm shocked. What are you saying? I do have a life and I am enjoying every bit of it.
Really? Why did you tell me to take you to the career fair then and get an appointment with the college counselor?
Oh, Dad. Just to learn how things work in this country.
Also, why do we need to keep it a secret from Raj?
I didn't say that.
Sorry to ask. I have been noticing and people have been noticing. What are those? Those marks?
Sobha, please, what are you implying? It's Raj you are talking about? People are talking about our private life? He is your husband's best friend. How can you be so sarcastic and bitter about him?
That's why I'm begging. Please talk to us. Please tell us the truth.
What have you been telling people? Who do you think you are? You ungrateful bitch?
I'm just defending you. When anyone knows about my marks.
Stop creating a racket. You said something to Sobha. Prasad had a strange conversation with me, full of advices.
Stop, Raj. Remember, I am pregnant.
You think you are so high and mighty with a BA degree?
Stop, Raj. I'm in pain. I am trying my best.
Trying your best? Always dreaming of a career, further studies, life of your own, becoming an independent woman. Nothing is good enough for you, is it? If anything happens to the baby, it will be your fault.
All I want to do is study a bit, read some more books. That's it.
I'm required by law to ask you if you were ever abused.
What? No, of course not. I told you. I fell down the stairs.
Well, this time you and baby got lucky. Please be very careful and please be safe. Here, take this. This is the information of a South Asian support group system. Maybe it will be useful for you.
No, I don't need it. I don't believe in such groups. They are just homebreakers.
I'm so sorry, my darling. I love you. Provoke me. It's your fault. It's my fault. It's both of our fault. You are my queen and I'll treat you as my queen.
No, Ras, you should not cry. It's my fault. You have given me everything. You work so hard. I am always dissatisfied. I am ashamed of myself.
No. It's my fault. Guess what? After the baby, you can do what you always wanted to do. You can join college.
Oh, Raj, you are too good to me.
Ranu had felt shame before, every time Raj had apologized. But tonight she was torn with guilt. She had seen Raj cry before, every time after beating her. But this time, he was so remorseful that she actually felt deeply sorry for him. The next few months, the couple spent in honeymoon mode. Ranu was always in such a constant state of elation that at times she thought she would burst. For the first time in 7 years of marriage, she felt free to dream of books, classes, new friends, maybe even a career. She had never felt more free in her life earlier. She was grateful for whatever life granted.
I'm so glad you called me and we get to hang out again. So glad you're doing everything you have been wanting to do for so many years.
How did you know? I never told you about my secrets.
A real friend just knows Ranu.
Please remember that and never hesitate to talk to me. Next time, I will talk to Raz directly.
What next time? Soha, you are just insulting me and my husband. There will be no next time. No one is happier than us.
I'm glad, but please remain alert and careful.
Please, don't try your psychotherapy stuff on me. Raz is right. You are just jealous.
Really? Sobha dared to tell you all that? Let's cancel the baby shower. Sobha must have spoiled other people's minds.
They canceled the baby shower and declined all invitations and stayed away from all social functions and gatherings. Ranu did not mind the isolation. She had her books now, but she had no one to talk to. The formerly bright, confident Ranu was hijacked by this new avatar, one who was constantly self-doubting, frightened, guilty, perpetually confused, who was a lost being. There were only the voices in her ears and head that she constantly tried to stifle.
Is this all you want? Your dreams for yourself? How are dreams for our son? Bigger home, his future. What kind of mother will you make? Should I call my mother to raise him? I don't see many baby books around.
Sorry, I'm so sorry. I will raise him, of course. I will get more baby books next time.
Why aren't there baby books around?
No, Raghu. No, listen to me. I didn't mean you at the library. No, Raghu, no. Don't do this. No. Please, have mercy on me. I'm in pain. I'm carrying your baby. Please. Please, don't do this. Please. How do I tell him? I'm carrying a baby girl. What will happen to my baby? Thank you for saving me and my baby.
That was riveting. Thank you, Sujata, and everyone who helped you for putting this together, and all the actors and actresses. You guys were amazing at such a short notice. I will come straight to um, the myths and misconceptions of domestic violence and the facts that are usually perpetuated more in the Indian households, in the Indian communities. It is natural. Even I work with these kind of cases, these situations on a more regular basis. But even I'm surprised every day. I learn something new every day. Myth number one, and I'll go over it very quickly in the interest of time. Prabhati has covered a lot of it. Myth number one, domestic violence does not happen to us. We are educated, cultured, relatively affluent, but it does. And some of you have sent me clients, and you know that it does. Unfortunately, the fact is that domestic violence happens to people of every educational, socioeconomic, religious background in all nations, races, age groups. As Prabhati had pointed out earlier, it is all about power and control, about one individual's insatiable urge to control another. We saw two couples, well educated, upwardly mobile, with what seemed like the world at their feet. But in both cases, the violence escalated to very dangerous level. Myth number two, domestic violence happens when only somebody flies out of control in a fit of rage because the perpetrator has anger management issues, stress at work, drinking problem. She must have provoked him. She was rude. She was nagging. That's why he abused her. It is somehow her fault. Otherwise, he is a perfect gentleman. The fact is that although use of drug and alcohol can make the situation worse, we as advocates have seldom seen those as underlying causes of violence. TV, domestic violence, is all about power and control once again, and we should not enable perpetrators by making these excuses for them. We saw in Meena's case, the control came steadily, stealthily, in a very strategic way. He wanted her to work, not to work. All his stress at work was somehow her fault, and sometimes you tend to forget that she's working too. Lot of gaslighting, psychological manipulation was going on the whole time. Lot of criticism in both cases, implying that they were not good enough for anything. Meena, we realize, Meena was already isolated, her self-esteem damaged and fearful long before we actually realized that he was also physically abusing her. So that is a pattern we have seen more with Indian couples in abusive relationships. In Ranu's case, he came on as the angry man right from the start. His abuse was more evident, more blatant, but his control was strategic too. You might have noticed he, like Meena's husband, while trying to make up, would say things like, "I'm so sorry. It was your fault. It was my fault. It was both our fault." At the end of the day, say there is a problem, there is a job issue, stress, anger issue, whatever. Should he, as a responsible adult, not face it and get help? How can you justify heaping all the blame and guilt on your wife, on your another human being, your intimate partner? Also, she provoked him, really? What kind of provocation would instigate that kind of violence that we saw in both the cases? Myth number three, and this is a recurrent question all the time. Community people, members ask, everyone asks, if she is abused, why doesn't she just leave? It is easy. In fact, it is never easy to leave a marriage, and almost not an option for Indian women who have been raised to believe that the most sacred duty in life is to take care of your husband, keep him happy, keep harmony in the house. All that is great, and I know most of us try to do that happily, but abused women do that at all costs. Also, why doesn't she leave? Well, relationships are complex. Could the abused woman still be in love with her husband? Of course, and it is not for me to judge or for me to comment on that or to criticize her. When Ranu defends her husband, also Meena, she is, can you say she's confused? Yes, she's confused. Is she in love with him? Of course. She is still glimpsing in this man, the man she married, the man they married long time back. And the violence of the cycle of violence, this whining, dining one day and then abuse the next day, is what really encourages that sort of behavior. Somehow they are lulled in through thinking that, oh, he's so nice to me today. It was my fault. I must have done something yesterday. That's why I got beaten up. Besides, who can blame Ranu on Meena for clinging on to their hopes and aspirations of the new life that they came to lead here, thousands of miles away from their country? Admitting they are in denial, yes, admitting that they are being abused would crush their world once and for all. It's a very hard thing to do. And for most newly married immigrant women, it is not an option because most of the time they are financially, physically dependent on the husband for the visa. Many don't know that there are options. Even for visa, you can get something called in the US EU visa. You can apply for that even through the police department. You can get it through ERISAs and other immigration lawyers. They don't know. How would they know? Unless they're connected to some resource or to organizations such as ours, or it's hard to know that. I learned about it only after I started working. Ranu, even after being severely beaten, keeps making excuses for the husband and then says, no, it was actually my fault. I provoked you. I did this. For most Indian women, there is the misplaced sense of guilt that it is my fault. I must have done something. He's so nice, so good to me. Look, he's giving me everything. Also, the misplaced sense of shame. Log kya kahenge? They will be shamed. Their parents' home will be blamed. Back home will be blamed. Leaving is really not an option. Why doesn't she leave? There are also very legitimate fears. One is the fear of children being taken away, long drawn custody battles, and we have seen them. They can be very ugly and extremely harmful for everyone involved. Also, the fear of more violence. Even for women in abusive relationships, when they leave, the risk of more violence and even death is at the highest when they are trying to leave their abusers. Myth number 4. Domestic violence is a private affair. It does not affect us. The fact is that domestic violence seldom stays behind closed doors. It will spill over the threshold and infiltrate communities, have long-term impact. You might have noticed that our flyer, the title, Behind Closed Doors, has a question mark after it. Is it behind closed doors? Does it remain behind closed doors? Not really. We see long-term effects on survivors. We have had people who have been, who were with us 10 years back, now in wonderful, happy relationships, wonderful careers, children, peaceful, happy homes. Because you can have happiness after that. There are more often than not, there are normal relationships. But they come to us with PTSD kind of symptoms, nightmares that make them actually relive the abuse, dysfunction, paralyzing fear for days at a time. Children, how does it impact? Does it have an intergenerational impact? Yes. Children in abusive relationships more often grow up thinking that is what life is, the cycle of violence. Unfortunately, quite few of them become either victims or perpetrators themselves. It is naive. So violence breeds more violence. It is naive to think that it is someone else's problem. Also, as human beings, if another human being is violated, it is a human rights abuse, and should that not be all our business? Especially if the member if she's a member of our expat community, alone and thousands of miles away from home. God forbid if it happens to anybody we love, should we want them to be alone? Myth number 5, my last one. Jitu, I'll be real quick. We cannot really help. One myth. If there's a volatile situation in somebody else's house, what can we do? We can do a lot. In fact, you as a community member, a relative, a friend can do much more than I can as an advocate in the beginning. I am bound by, I belong to an organization. I'm bound by policies, guidelines, by, in my case, Texas laws. You are, as a friend, community member, relative, I cannot make the first phone call. Even if I could have, I would have had, I would be on the call, on the phone a lot more. You can find ways to intervene. You can find ways to be there for them. And in both the cases, we saw community members reaching out to them. Some gave them very bad advice, and but then there were a couple who gave them very positive reinforcements. And in Ranu's case, someone intervened so that she could be taken out of the bathwater to the hospital. Meena got a lot of bad criticism, about that she's weak, etc., but also some positive reinforcements. They both were told that there are organizations out there who can help them. There are options. They don't have to live like this. But please note that sometimes it can backfire if you're aggressive. I understand the urge when you see somebody suffering, you just want to jump in there and get them out of the situation. Doesn't always help. It's, and just to, and either to rescue, just to go and tell them, come, let's just go. No. Also because they will go back, and or to say, why don't you leave, or to criticize them, call them weak. No. And what Ranu's friend's husband did was also, well-intentioned. But he just went and took Ranu's husband to task. And what happened? He came home and became violent with her. But we still need to help. How? We need to learn how to listen actively, to be non-judgmental, respectful, understanding, patient. We need to learn more about domestic violence in general and about domestic violence in the Indian diaspora in particular, about resources out there, how to help effectively, what to say, what to do, and what not to say, what not to do. That's as important. Above all, we need to reassure them that we are there for them always. Sometimes giving them a benefit of the doubt can make a difference between life and death, as you saw in Ranu's case. I am so proud of our Odia communities, our Indian communities. We are very hardworking people, honest people, most of us self-made, but we are, at the end of the day, human beings with human weaknesses, strengths. So why not confront our problems instead of brushing them under the table and deal with them together, solve them, find solutions together so that our children do not have to carry the burden. And can some of these problems be solved? Of course, absolutely. But we have to work on it together. We have to keep our eyes and ears open. And please reach out to you can reach out to me. I can connect you if you know, and that has happened again and again. Odia people from everywhere have called me. I've connected them. I first listened to them, then connected them to the resource there. Or your local, anyone you call, they will help you there. I know that Sujata will put up a slide, but before that, I just want to mention that from invisible bruises, we came to very visible, blatant bruises. And now I would also, after Sujata gives us the slide with the resources, I would invite Dr. Tapti Panda to share her experiences about the very visible bruises that she sees and the intergenerational impact and long-term effects of DV. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Great.
Thank you, Tapasi Nani. Namaskar. Sujata Nani, I will share my screen.
Just for the available resources, I'm just showing this here, but I think we will try to put that information in the link for OW. So I think Tapti, you can get started now. Tapti, you can get started now.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. And again, I thank the speakers ahead of me who have addressed this very important and very sensitive topic. I'm going to go directly into the health impacts of domestic violence or intimate partner or family violence in women. Today, another woman died, and not on a foreign field, and not with a rifle strapped to her back, not with any defense tanks rumbling and rolling behind her, no news coverage about how she died. The target was simply her face, her back, her pregnant belly, her precious flesh that was once composed like music in her mother's body and sung at birth. The target was this life that had lived with its own dear wilderness, had been loved, not loved, and damaged. Domestic violence is very much there. We just choose to be blind. The community chooses not to address it. Families don't look at it. The woman in the end is the one that is at the receiving end. There are still 603 million women living in areas where domestic violence is not considered a crime. Can you believe that? The incidence when we compare is 1 in 3 worldwide. For a woman to be, the chances that a woman will be abused is 1 in 3 when compared to a man, which is 2 in 5. In India, domestic violence is very prevalent and up to about 30%. And the range is between 6% in Japan and 60% in Peru. State-wise, the state of Bihar ranks 1. Odisha is thankfully way down at 27. But this is something that is universal. And the COVID pandemic has especially made it very difficult for women and some men across the world to actually reach out, to voice and to report and to ask for help. When there is a crisis as big as the COVID pandemic, we fail to see something else, the domestic violent victims, and not always because of a pandemic. We have already seen from the prior talks the different types of domestic violence and its consequences. And generally, I would split it into acute and long-term consequences. And types of violences would be like Dr. Pravati had mentioned in her fantastic talk. It could range from physical to technological. Partners may stalk or abuse using social media, using Twitter, which can cause mental, emotional, and long-term psychological impact. Sexual abuse is where we receive these women. As an obstetrician gynecologist, I see that end of women who face domestic violence, and they come in denial, and they don't report it, and they try to protect their partner because they still believe that there is hope and there is always love that is present, which will one day end the violence. But that's not always true, as we have seen. Now, when we consequences, gynecological consequences are just as common as obstetrical or pregnancy related injuries that we spoke about in prior the dramatic presentation that we had. Rape and violent sexual practice, use of objects, trauma, bleeding, infection, permanent anatomical changes that can happen as a result of these brutal injuries in women result in fistulas, tracts, which is actually an injury that is caused between the vagina and rectum or the vagina and the bladder. women during delivery or even later on as pain. Moms and children are equally affected, like Dr. Prabhati said in her talk. Those women who are subject to abuse at home, they have a fear of reporting incidents. They have a fear of consequences that may affect their family or their relationship or may have a long-term impact. So they don't report these incidents, they don't seek care. And what we see is the lack of screening, the lack of diagnosis, incidences of sexually transmitted diseases, HIV, and urinary infections in moms who are pregnant. As a result, these infections can be passed on to the unborn child, and the unborn child can also be affected. A lot of women in abusive relationship fear to ask or reach out to their healthcare worker and ask for contraception. So the amount of contraceptive use in women who are in abusive relationship is very less compared to otherwise. And as a result, there are a lot of unplanned pregnancies we see, and and we also see emergent health situations as a consequence of unsafe abortion techniques, which are some sort of, consequence, as because women may try to hide the pregnancy, but they are not ready to be pregnant, and they may seek care from some other illegal method to kind of terminate that pregnancies. The other end, we also see a lot of female genital mutations, which we think that is prevalent. There are a lot of other countries, including India, where such practices are still being done, not reported. The WHO has banned any kind of female genital mutilations or practices, but there are still areas where these things are being practiced, and they are being done at home. This is not something that is done at a different place, but the family is involved, and the family will include mothers or sisters, where sometimes they may subject younger girls to actually genital mutations. And also we've seen infanticides being a lot in rise, where in countries which allow sex determination during pregnancy, we have seen, and I have personally seen, especially not just in Indian population alone, but otherwise also, where terminations are done once they realize that, oh, it's a girl child again, we don't want to have this. So these are also unseen and unreported ways in which women are actually abused. And because of all of these above mentioned consequences, chronic pain as well. Then we come to the obstetrical or the pregnancy part, which is actually a more vital thing we discuss in this today's forum and today's seminar. Pregnancy being a very vulnerable state, 1 in 8 women are actually abused when they are pregnant. So we do, as obstetricians and gynecologists, have a sense of responsibility. We do ask routine questions to all pregnant women. Sometimes we are actually questioned by, oh, why are you asking me this? And we don't assume that everybody is actually happy, or we don't assume that they don't have things to report. Even if they are pregnant, their pregnancy may have some stories that they may not come out in the open unless they are actually asked. So pregnancy related consequences can broadly be fatal and non-fatal. So the audience actually asked questions about why is it so important that we are talking about women and not about men, because pregnancy is a very woman related topic, and most women are actually abused when they are pregnant. Pregnancy can become fatal, and it can also result in the death of the unborn child as well. So it is very important for us to discuss this topic and be comfortable with discussing this topic as well. So moms who are in abusive relationship, there is a higher incidence of what we see, death and suicide also, because they can't take the abusive relationship anymore. They may end their lives. We've also seen women who are pregnant and in abusive relationships seeking less care, neglecting themselves, neglecting their nutritional requirements. Anemia is very common in women who are in abusive relationships and they are pregnant, because they may sometimes not be interested in their pregnancy. They may not want to seek care, and they may sometimes end up having miscarriages because of repetitive trauma or physical abuse. And we see women also seeking more illegal substances, and substance abuse also is quite common in women in domestic violent relationship. Obviously, not to mention mental health issues that we have already spoken. Um, as a result of some traumatic injuries, sometimes they may be labor or their pain may not be controlled very well. There is a higher incidence of operative deliveries like cesarean sections in women who may be abused, who may have physical implications of their abuse. Obviously, we also see other traumatic cases where moms are hit or they are thrown or there's gunshot injuries, and we see them in the emergency room in very bad shape, bleeding or almost in a very delicate critical situation, where sometimes when we do diagnose fracture skull and maybe sometimes even unfortunately demise in babies that are born to abusive relationship. Moms are generally also low birth weight, and we do see consequences of intrauterine fractures that may have happened in babies that are born to moms that were abused. Also, just giving one example, we do also see the other end where women either don't seek care at all, they don't come for weeks together and then they show up, or there's the other spectrum where they keep coming to the hospital and keep reporting, I fell or I hit or I got cut or other things, anything but reporting the abuse. So we can see this slide shows a woman that came in complaining that she fell, she tripped over a ladder or something, she was adjusting and she fell, and she ended up with a rib fracture, she ended up with placental rupture and an injury to baby's head, and she needed multiple um, orofacial surgeries because she fell reportedly off the ladder. So these are just types of things that we tend to see, the physical aspect, that sometimes very difficult or there is a very slim line, and we have to be able to see through and suspect and question and not just assume what the pregnant woman is saying. So who and why are
Yeah.
women,
Uh,
what who are the women?
Tafti, I'm sorry. Do you have many more slides?
I'm sorry.
Are you? This is Chitunani. I was just wondering how long. Do you have a lot more slides or?
Okay.
Yeah.
So who and why are women abused? Mostly there are certain risk factors for women who are either very far from their families, or they are isolated, they are not employed, or they are young or older women who are pregnant, intercaste marriages, and or they don't have any siblings, and generally, as we have already seen, the abuse of partner the intimate partner or a husband or boyfriend. Very rarely it is a sister-in-law or a mother-in-law. And usually the reasons why women are abused sometimes is not known, but a lot of times there are certain factors that go into abusive relationship, alcoholism, financial issues, and things that we have already covered in prior topics. So destigmatizing screening of domestic violence is very, very essential. That means we need to be more aware, we need to educate, we need to support, we need to also be very aware of our surrounding, and also the woman that we deal with, you know, maybe a family member, maybe a friend, maybe your relative. That is very important for us to recognize and also be able to report and very much true. You're not alone. And this is not just your fight. This is a community's fight. Domestic violence never takes any maternity leave, nor any kind of leave. So any woman could be at risk. And it's very important for us to report, educate, and train whoever we can to screen for domestic violence. She was the same girl her mom used to kiss, the same child you dreamed beside in school, the same baby her parents walked in the night with and listened for her cries, even while they slept. And someone has confused his rape this woman's only life. This is a sad story of one of the women who lost their lives during pregnancy. Again, I am very thankful for the opportunity, and I'm happy to answer questions along with the other esteemed speakers. Thank you very much for your patient listening, and thanks to the wonderful organizing committee and the audience.
Thanks so much, Tafi. So we really great, all three speakers. Thanks so much. I think we will now go to the Q&A right now. So let me go to the beginning. I know that some of the questions were answered already, but there was a, I think, recurring theme. I think I just wanted to, I know that both Prabhati and Tapti tried to answer that, but this is related to men, whether they also get abused, and what is the reason. And I wanted Tapasi to give an answer to that also.
Yes. As I had mentioned before, we have, we at AWAS, we work with men, women, children, elderly. You know, the reasons, it's again, we have to do a completely different seminar for that. So let's not go into that. We do have, but, you know, I don't know, Prabhati, do you have a statistics? I'm not a statistics person. I do not believe very much in the statistics we get from the South Asian communities, because a lot of it goes unreported. A lot of people fall through the cracks. But from my experience, very few men compared to women. And I was somewhere making a presentation, and a man came up to me and I said, you know, you work with these women issues. Will you ever believe me if I told you I was abused? You'll never believe me. I said, of course I'll believe you. You know, we never ever disbelieve anyone. And then he told me certain stories, and same issues, same issues. It's power and control. Women have a harder time physically doing stuff that men do. Men do not land up in the hospitals like women do in cases of domestic violence. But the basis is power and control. Okay, there is no excuse for violence, whether it is perpetrated by a man or woman. So yes, there are some, and but it is much more volatile. It has been much more deadly when in my experience, when it has been the woman. Every time I have one of our clients has been in the hospital, it's been a woman. And so, yes.
Yeah, but the support system is there. I think some people were asking
Absolutely,
whether they have
support
the
system
support
is
system.
there. Men do not reach out as much as women do. Even enough women don't reach out, and Indian women even reach out less. And that's why you guys have to be the eyes and ears. We had a recent case where the woman came to us, and we were working with her. She was past that. Then the husband came to us and said, I want to uh, talk to you all about my experience. He didn't know she was one of our clients. And of course, we couldn't take him on because that would be a conflict of interest. That doesn't mean we didn't refer him to someone. We do not judge, period. Even husbands, we do not judge. We never, ever talk to the client about the perpetrator. They can say whatever. We can't say. It's not in my place. Like we had said, they might still be in love with them. It is not for us to judge. No, we don't do those kind of things. We are there. You come to us and we'll be focused on you. We'll present you with options. We'll help you to the best of our abilities. We are not into you getting back at them or anything like that. Recently, I had a client who is, we have clients who come to us and say, please use our names. We are now fine. We want others to know about us. We are very careful about that too. All right, it's will not have any legal repercussions because you want to sign your privacy away to us. But out of respect for their struggles, for what they have gone through, what we have seen, we do not just go around talking about them. So
Yeah, so
there is help.
Yeah, they should make them comfortable that there is
There is help.
You respect their privacy and there is support. Okay, so there's another question from Priyanka Mishra. Will a woman on her husband's working visa abroad be addressed with the same rights and be sheltered in a safe house if she reports the abuse?
Yeah, I think I already answered her, Jitu, but just for general information, yes, your rights are the same. If you are being abused, doesn't matter whether you have a visa or not, your rights here in this country, I can only talk about this country because here I work here. Your rights are the same. There is such a thing as a U visa. Most people do not know. If you are an immigrant woman and you don't have the visa, you can get actually very quickly something called a U visa. Unfortunately for the U visa, the police can get it to you faster, but then you have to call the police and you have to press charges. Remember that. You might call the police, your neighbor might call the police, but unless you press charges, nothing happens. We have had clients who do not want to press charges, and we will never ever force them to press charges. Unfortunately, extremely frustrating. There have been nights I haven't slept thinking what is happening there. I don't know. I can't even, I have the right to call the police because we have a very good relationship with the San Antonio Police Department. I have the right to call the police and tell them, go do something called a wellness check that they do. But I'm worried. Will that wellness check lead to more violence tonight? So we are always, walking on eggshells. Now, so what we have done is send them to RISES, which also works with immigrant issues, immigration lawyers, if they can get them U visas. So you have the right.
Okay, thank you. So I think there are some other questions that have been answered by Minati Rai Chaudhary. There was a question about codependency. I assume that it has been answered by Dr. Prabhati Panigrai and Tapti. So I'm just going to skip that unless, so let me just go to the next one. Lot of kudos to you guys. Okay, there was a question about girl child termination. I think people are asking whether it is happening in the USA or back in India, but I believe, I think Tapti and Mamatanani said that it is happening here too. Is there any question that, okay, so Tapti, what can be the role of an OBGYN to redress such brutal violence?
Yeah, I think I just replied back saying that all women.
Yes, you did. Yeah, you did.
I
There are so
I
many
think,
questions.
yeah, I think in Texas, doctors are now required to ask the the patient if they have been abused, if they see any sign at all. Now I think there is a requirement. All doctors have to ask.
Okay, so there is a
Doctors
question.
play a big role. Yeah.
Right. So sorry. So there's a question, Tapasi, and for you, if you can advise if anyone suspects of domestic violence, they contact Tapasi for consultation, and I can say yes because we always do, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Please do, and we can discuss it. Please do, and and then I will also connect you with your local. We have now all the South Asian groups are coming together with in a coalition. So we all kind of are getting to know each other even better. So it will be easier for me if you cannot get through to somebody. It will be easier for me to connect you to someone. And yes, so there are times when people don't want to come to us, and I understand that, but you as a friend, like I said, you have a big role to play, as a relative, a friend, and you can help in ways that I cannot. So excuse me. If you can act as a bridge between an advocate, someone like me, and the I hate to use the word victim, the survivor, then that will help a lot, a lot. Please call me, email me, whatever.
Okay, did I miss? Okay, so there is a question from Mr. Gopal Mahanti and Oscar. So how does one learn about human relations when the emphasis is study, study, and make money? Joint family and community have an impact in learning.
Yeah. Very philosophical question. True. I agree. But that's the reality, right? That's the reality. And I work with people here. So the reality is that, we have gone through that. We do that to our children. I think listen to each other more. Let's listen to each other more. We maybe have parties together, maybe we socialize a lot, but do we really know each other? Do we really listen to each other? When there is an issue, real issue, how many people really go stand by you? So those are the things we as a community together need to work on it. Like I said, I am very proud of our community. There is nothing wrong with studying more, being ambitious, and even chasing material goods. Nothing wrong, but let's not neglect this human side of us, because it can lead to some very serious problems and serious issues, as we see, which will be carried over.
Okay, so I think we're done with the questions. If there is any more questions, you can reach out to any of the speakers. I will thank you so much. It was great.
I have one comment, Jitu. I urge, request all of you to please get in touch with your local South Asian Indian organization. The reason for organizations such as ours, culture-specific organizations, was, we were created so that we could address certain culture-specific issues and problems of our clients that the mainstream couldn't. And we started off because we became a bridge between the mainstream resources organizations and our clients. We still work very, very closely with all the mainstream organizations. For example, ours doesn't have a shelter. We use our local battered women shelter, but because we have an amazing relationship with them, our clients are treated very well there. So please get to know your local, your Indian associate organizations like ours, your even your battered women shelter and all that. Get to know them, volunteer there if you can, let them know you. It just makes it easier. You learn in that process more about domestic violence. Most of them have training for people, laymen. Almost all of them will have training, classes, courses, and things you can do there. It always helps when you know someone there. Always helps. If you, God forbid, should you ever need it for anyone you love, it is much easier to connect if you know someone there.
Thank you. And thanks a lot, Tapasi. And Anupa, you can start now. But before that, I just also wanted to thank again Mamata Mishra. She is attending, and she was the one who started the Women's Forum, as far as I remember. And she started the organization in Austin. So before Tapasi, there was Mamata Nani. And she will be presenting a seminar on mindfulness in February 13th. So just want to let you know. Thanks, Anupa, you can go ahead.
Okay. Namaskar, everybody. You will all agree with me that we had a very informative seminar on domestic violence presented by three outstanding speakers. Our sincere thanks to our guest speaker, Dr. Prabhati Panigrahi from Australia, Taposi Mishra from San Antonio, Texas, and Dr. Tapti Panda from New York for sharing their expertise with us. We salute our speakers for their years of dedication to help the victims in providing counseling, medical care, and advocating for their rights. This is a good beginning. We are only scratching the surface of a very complex problem. And I won't be surprised if this seminar was the first time some of us attend in their entire life. So we are hopeful that the knowledge we gain through these seminars will be translated into helping the victims of the domestic violence. Many thanks to OWE's working committee members, especially to Sujata Patnaik, Dr. Aparajita Mishra, Dr. Tapti Panda, and Taposi Mishra for organizing this seminar, creating a short film and a video advertisement. Thanks to all the participants in our film. And thanks to Dr. Prabhati Panigrai for her gripping documentary on domestic violence. Thanks to Dr. Tapti Panda for designing the flyer. And thanks to OSA, our OSA president, Mr. Ganu Patnaik, and the executive committee for their support. And thanks to Dr. Aparajita Mishra for moderating the seminar today. And at last, not the least, but not the least, many thanks to you all for attending this seminar. I apologize if I missed anyone to thank. And just, I feel like it was an amazing seminar. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you, organizer.
Thank you so
We are
much.
humbled and honored
Yes.
to be here.
Right. So I think we are done, finished. Thank you all. Have a wonderful day.